Good morning. It is a crisp, ripe temperature of 7 degrees outside right now, so I've opted for the more cozy clothing approach. Anyways, today my Clash Royale seems to be dead. Black screen much? Who knows? Today I wanted to talk about cliches. Now, if you don't know what a cliche is, it is when you repeat an idea that has been previously reused or has been reused to the point where it's basically just a basic thing that you go to when, oh my goodness, when you write about stories or certain things, you know, the usual. Anyways, I'm here to talk about cliches. And what I've realized over the past year and a half of me watching movies and having to write English essays, well, not essays, English imaginative texts, is that basically everything in our... When I say basically everything, I mean a lot of ideas that people think aren't cliche have already been used before, quite a lot of times in fact. For example, I was watching a movie the other day. It is called Thunderbolts. Now yes, I'm pretty sure a lot of you know what Thunderbolts is. It's a bunch of rugrats without powers that like shoot up to become the next Avengers. You know, and I thought, what a creative idea this is. Like, putting normal civilians, well, not normal civilians, I guess to some extent they still all had some sort of power, or like they were outcasts and they were like working for this crime organization or the CIA. This is major spoilers for Thunderbolts, by the way, so my bad. But then I realized there was another story that is very similar to this, and it's literally just the Suicide Squad, is it not? Like, it was a bunch of prisoners slash outcasts that got brought in together to fight a big bad, like, it's basically the same story, no? And that's where the point of cliches gets brought up, is that, is anything in our world truly not cliche anymore? To be honest, unless you're a major, like, brain worm type of person, and you're like, hey, let's think about something truly original. Cliches are basically unavoidable at this point now, because how many times have people rehashed the same idea over and over and over again, to the point where it's just like, yo, we've seen this before, like this movie over here and this movie over here, and like they're all the same thing. Like, okay, Bob from judascradle.com.au, I don't know. Like, for example, a cliche that I see all the bloody time is, I think I mentioned this in my bad writing video, but it's the cliche of reincarnation into another world, just to be like surrounded by 50 trillion women and, you know, be overpowered as hell, and then You're just unkillable within your character story, and at that point you just gotta ask, what is the point of even watching this if you know that the main character is like basically omnipotent at this point and he can't be killed, and all the women in the world just magically fall in love with him. Like, I was reading a manga the other day. I thought, hey, maybe this manga is a bit different in the fact that maybe they, you know, like, it seemed pretty original, you know? They introduced a lot of, you know, new things, and then all of a sudden, it becomes cliche, because the main character of the story suddenly gets with like 600 women, and like, excuse me, where did the 600 women come from? Like, I must be tripping, but there is no way they managed to turn a story like that into the most cliched thing I have ever seen. Like, are ideas really that hard to come up with nowadays that you have to resort to cliches? Now, I'm not saying you can't rehash an idea, alright? Like, it's bound to happen. There's so many cliches in our world nowadays, it's basically unavoidable, to the point of you just gotta find ways to reuse ideas, like original ideas, to the point where it seems like it's not cliche, but it's technically cliche. Like, the same thing can be said for YouTube. Like, yes, I know there's a lot of content creators and, you know, other content makers that have like very, very similar styles of making videos, and, you know, they have the same video structure, video ideas, and it's unavoidable. The thing is, you just gotta adapt to a point where you yourself are able to kind of differentiate yourself from the others. Like, at one point, I remember that there was that whole movies on TikTok arc. It was like the TikTok video would rehash the same movie plot of like 6 different movies. I thought they were the same movie, but apparently they were different movies, and I was like, what is up with all these movies literally having the same plot every single time? And it really does beg the question of what isn't cliche within our world nowadays. Like, you could be writing a monster story about a boy that goes to a high school and he meets new friends and he's like all powerful. But isn't that basically just rehashing the story of Harry Potter? Like, without even realizing it, a lot of the time you realize that a lot of the things that you see are very, very cliche. To the point of it just becomes a natural thing that you just have to deal with, because there's no way you can tell me that Superman isn't like the most cliched thing you've seen all day every day for the last like 10 years. Like, it just becomes to the point where it gets boring, is what I'm saying. And cliches are basically unavoidable, to the point where it's like, hey Joe, you wanna go watch Madame Web? To be honest, Madame Web wasn't very cliche in the point that I don't think any other movie would want to replicate what sort of story it had. But I actually found Madame Web quite funny when I was watching it, because I didn't watch it in cinemas. I watched it on streaming services, and when I watched it, I wasn't watching it for the plot, but the plot was pretty bland. The only thing that made Madam Web enjoyable was the originality of the so-called plot, which was 3 spider women and this madame, and then they embark on an adventure to kill a spider guy. I mean, it kind of seems like a very normal plot, but maybe it's because of all the reviews I saw that made it more interesting, or something about that movie made it interesting. But it was definitely because part of it was definitely because it wasn't as cliche as like a normal Spider-Man movie, I guess. Is like Spider-Man meets a villain, and then the villain outpowers Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man becomes all powerful. Well, no. Technically, they have not done that with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, because Tom Holland's Spider-Man has been more based on the multiverse more than anything. Or, no, let me correct that. The threats that Spider-Man has faced in the more recent ones is not what the originals used to be, which I guess is pretty fun in terms of ideas and what the directors are trying to achieve. And in a sense, I guess when they don't replicate this old nostalgia of, you know, movies or certain parts of movies that people enjoyed in the past, yeah, I guess maybe that's when you can start to bring in cliches. But what I'm saying is, people gotta start realizing that you can't just keep rehashing the same ideas over and over and over again, because it gets to the point where you're just like, oh my goodness, what is even going on anymore? Everything is the same. It's like, do you really want something that's the same every single time you watch it? Because honestly, I don't, to be honest. Like, I don't want to be watching the same Avengers movie time and time again every single time just to say that, oh wow, the Avengers maybe lost this time. Like, okay, there'll be another movie. Like, I think one of the main things that helped Infinity War and Endgame to thrive was the Avengers actually losing instead of always winning, because they won in Ultron, they won in the OG movie, but they didn't win in Infinity War, which I guess helped to set up for the success of Endgame. And Endgame is like one of the most popular movies of all time because of the success that came off of Infinity War, of, oh, the Avengers actually lost this time, so we're gonna see what happens from here, because obviously they're not gonna have the same ending of all the other ones where it's just like, oh, they won and then they just wait for the next threat to appear, and it's just like, okay, well, we've seen this like 600 other times, like, please just give us an original idea. And it's just like, okay, Bob, you know, this idea was fun in the beginning, but it wasn't fun anymore. And I mean, if you set it up like that, even though Endgame was incredibly cliche, Infinity War helped to set up a continuation upon, you know, the already cliched Avengers. So all I'm saying is, everything is cliche, basically. There's no point of avoiding it. It's just how you set up your stories and your movies to be able to avoid these conceptions of repeatability and boringness that I'm sure a lot of people have realized recently with a lot of the superhero movies. And yeah, that's all I really got to say. Bye bye.